right, here we are. Okay. Oop. Just wanted to check and make sure everything was going well. Hello, thanks for joining me today. I am Ron Hogue. I'm here to show you a little bit about Camtasia. Hey, and where did my camera go? Camera went away. That is odd, but I am still here. Wonder if this works. Hey, there we are. For some reason, my camera, okay, it's back. So a little bit of technical difficulties as we start. I'm Ron Hogue. I'm here to do some Camtasia answers for you today live. And I do this, I've been doing this for the last few Sundays. I like it. It's a little bit of fun. It's a little bit stressful for me, a little bit exciting, probably is the better word. So today I have a few items for you. Let's see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with frame rates, talk about that question that I had about frame rates. Backgrounds is next, a certain type of background that I used. I'll talk about other backgrounds that I've used, and then placeholders and templates. So for question number one, the question is about, where does it say the question? I wish you would give the reasons simply on why one would use different frame rates. Okay, so let's talk about frame rates for a second. Inside Camtasia, especially in Camtasia 2020, we have the ability to use different frame rates for our production. And I want to show you, I'm going to jump over to Camtasia. The 4 that are now available, there used to be 2, and then before that there was just 1. So we started with 30 frames per second, so 30 images that combined together would make 1 second of video. Then in a later version it was 60 FPS that we could do, so 30 or 60 were the 2 options. And so that, again, 30 images or 60 images. And now in Camtasia 2020, they've made it available for 25 and 50 frames per second. So now we have those 4 different frames per second that we can work in. So the first question is, why does somebody want to use this? And the first answer is, here in the United States, we typically use 30 frames per second for a lot of our just general videos. So I would say probably on average the YouTube videos that you would go to see would have 30 frames per second. For those who are gamers, they like to have more frames per second, so you might find 60 frames per second for them. So I believe that the first jump from 30 to 60 was really to help out the gamers to give those higher frame rates. And so again, you can see more action as you're going through with those 60 frames per second. So the jump to 25 and 50 really supports pretty much everybody else outside of the US. I think Japan still uses 30 frames per second, and maybe a couple of others. Maybe there's one in South America or something. But regardless, most of the rest of the world, most of the other countries, like 25 frames per second, and then they have a 50 frames per second, which is the higher frame rate. So that explains the country side of things and why we chose those different numbers. Let me jump over to Camtasia now and take a look at why we would use some of these. So what I did just a few moments ago, and part of the reason that I was just a little bit late on getting started, just a few seconds, was I was trying to put together this quick video. So what I did here was, you can see here it is 60 frames per second. So if I zoom, I think I can zoom in here. Does it show that? Yeah. So right here it's showing this video, this project that I'm working in is 60 frames per second. If I wanted to change this, TechSmith, if you happen to be watching, I would love to right click this and be able to change it, but I can't. Where I have to go is under the project settings. So here at the bottom of project settings, I can choose the 30, 60, 25, 50. Okay. So right now I have it set at 60 frames per second. So I'm just going to leave it at 60 for now. And I'm going to show you, I think I'm at the beginning. I'm going to do a control home to make sure I'm at the beginning. Yep, I'm at 0. And now I'm going to use the period key to move 1 frame to the right. And so let me zoom back out. And I'm just going to show you here if you're looking, so 1 frame to the right, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. I'm just doing 1 at a time, tick, 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 tick. And what you can see here very slowly is this is a standard 30 frames per second video here, a 60 frames per second video here, and a 120 in the middle. And I should probably have labels so we don't forget where these are. So let me just do a quick label for each of these. This guy is my, what did I say? This is my 60. And copy paste. This one is my 30. And the one in the center is 120. Copy paste and undo. Drag it over here. This is my 120 frames per second. All right, so with these videos, let me just grab these and drag these up a little bit. All right, so with the videos, as I'm going through frame by frame, you can see in 60 frames per second that when I look at what's happening here on the left, I can see something changes each time. So I'm going to go change, 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 change. So for these two in here, I can see a change every second or every frame. This one though, it's every other frame. So watch, I'll go change, 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 change. So it's only capturing a few, it's only every other frame basically, right? Because what has happened is I've captured 30 frames per second and I'm playing it back at 60 frames per second. So if I only have 30 to work with, you can imagine, you know, if in this case, I have 4, but then I have like 8 places to put them in. Well, they don't all fit. So I'll use one to fit 2, and then the next one to fit the next 2, and the next one to fit the next 2. So it's just not going to be as smooth. So that's one thing. The next thing I want to show you though is I want to drop this. Let me drop this to 30 frames per second. Oh no, I know what I wanted to do first. So looking here, let me zoom down here to the lower left. Let me zoom in even further and show you that when I'm going here frame by frame, so here's the next frame, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and then typically when I would hit the next one, it would go to 0. But because I'm at 30 or 60 frames per second, now you can see that I'm going up as I go frame by frame by frame. It is going up, and then 59, and then 60, the 60th frame is the first second. Okay, so that's how it's showing me that I have 60 frames in here that I can work with. Okay, so let's zoom back out. Now, the next thing I want to show you with this is I'm going to change the frame rate, and I'm also going to change the clip speed and how we can use these different frame rates with different clip speeds. Okay, so let's change the frame rate first. So we'll jump back to Camtasia, and like I said, I'm going to go up to the top here. And I am going to go to project settings. And when we look here at project settings, let me zoom in. I can say change that frame rate from 60 to, let's jump down to 30 and click apply. All right. So now as you look here, let's go to the lower left. If I look here at the lower left and I'm looking at my playhead and I go 1 frame, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and there's my 30th frame. Okay. So let's do the same thing. Let me zoom out again. And I'm going to go frame by frame. I'm just going to go backward this time. And I want you to watch here in the middle. And, well, maybe, let me see if this, yeah, so kind of watch the frames. So I'm going to go backward. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see there's something moving on each of those for every frame that I'm using. Okay, so when I'm working with 30 frames per second, then it's easy for me to be able to show all the frames because all of these have at least 30 frames per second. All right, so now let me slow some things down and produce or show you what it looks like if I slow this stuff down. So let's jump back to Camtasia, and I'm going to grab all 4 of these, and I'm going to right click here, and let's look at what I'm doing here. Right click, and I want to add clip speed. So let's see here. There we go. That's a little bit better. So right click, add clip speed. And right now the clip speed is at 1.0, and I can click this and drag this out. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over here to the right, and I think if I go here, yeah, there's a little bit of color adjustment on the one. But if I go to clip speed, I'm going to say here that I want this clip speed to be 0.25x. So go 1/4 of the speed it was going before. All right. So now when I look at this range, I see that everything is taking longer, exactly 4 times longer than it was before. All right, so I'm going to go back to the beginning. I'm just going to double click, and I'm going to go 1 frame to the right. So if I go 1 frame, I can see the middle item is moving every time I click a frame, because it has 120 frames to put in this, in the 4 seconds. The next one, the one to the left, is only every other frame, and the one on the right is every other frame. It's every 4 frames. So if I go to the right here, so we just saw right here, everything changed. So I say right there, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see as I'm going through here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's showing us that, and I'll just, you know what I'll do is I'll play this, and let's play this and see how this looks. So you can see in the middle, everything looks smooth, even as I'm struggling to juggle. On the right, it looks fairly choppy, and on the left, it's not too bad. It looks okay, but I mean, maybe if I had a better camera position or something like that, that would work better. But so a couple of things to talk about here. Number one, when you have higher frame rates, you can slow things down and play things in slow motion. So with that 120, it's a very smooth action that we see. And number two, when you're taking these frames per second, it changes the way things look. Let me jump back to Camtasia and show you what I mean. When I look at, let me see something where there's some motion here. So let me go, there we go. Like right, yeah, that's okay. Oh, and I jumped away from it. So look at the crispness of the images as I'm going through here. So this one on the left, you can't really see it really well, but there's a little bit of blur here. There's a ton of blur here and very little blur here. So when I play through this, or I'll just try a few more frames to the right, you can see that the slower frames per second give me more blur, or the lower the frames per second, the more blur I get. The higher the frames per second, the less blur. And again, even just looking here at my left hand, here it's super blurry, here it's moderately blurry, and here it's just barely blurry at the 120. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me just see if I zoom in, if that helps a little bit. So again, at this one frame, it should be, if I timed it correctly, all of these should be aligned perfectly. So again, you can see this is the least blurry, a little bit more blurry, and then the most blurry here. All right, so that is frame rates. I think I answered all that. Oh, one other thing, yeah, so if you're producing for a different platform, wherever that platform is, you could be producing for 30 frames per second for YouTube or 60 frames. That's up to you. Of course, you would determine that usually before you upload, and you would produce it for that platform that accepts those frames per second. For example, YouTube accepts 60 frames per second, but there are some places where 30 frames is just fine, and that might even be the maximum. So just producing your videos at 30 frames per second might be the better thing to do. And if you're wondering about what I do, I produce just about everything at 30 frames per second. And just to show you the production here real quick, I can jump over to Share, Local File. I'm going to choose an MP4. And then for the video settings, what I would do is I can change my frame rate here for whatever platform I'm using. So if I'm outside of the US and I need to produce something at 25 or 50 frames per second, I can choose that here under the Custom Production Wizard. Okay, hopefully you can see that. I'll zoom in so you can see that a little bit easier. So again, you know, we went to the Video Settings tab and then came down and we can see, oh, I want to produce this at 25 frames per second or 50 frames per second or 60. Now, I'm going to cancel this and let me just zoom back out. No, I'll jump over to the camera for a second. Because this particular production is set, the project is at 30 frames per second, there isn't really any benefit to producing at a higher frame rate like 60. If I had a 60 FPS project, I could drop it down to 30, but going from 30 up to 60 doesn't give you any benefit. It doesn't really help. So it's just the same frame twice. It just makes the file size twice as big with no noticeable benefit to the viewer. Okay, there was a ton of information on frame rates. I should probably stop the video here, but I have more information to share with you, and they should be faster. At least the second one will be faster. So let me jump back over to my questions. And the next question comes from The Violin Life and says, what did you use as a background whenever you were video recording yourself? So what I did, this particular question was about a video I did for Camtasia Quick. I wonder if I can find, I'm not going to try and find that. So I've had a few different backgrounds, and they're talking specifically about what I had behind me in my video. So the answer to this question was I used seamless paper, a roll of seamless paper. Savage is the name of the company. So if you go to Amazon and type in Savage paper or something like that, or Savage seamless paper, you'll see that they have lots of different colors. And I think Thunder Gray is the name that comes to mind. I didn't really check to make sure that was exactly it. But they have a few different types of gray and different colors that you can use. And so what I did was I just taped it to the wall. Now, it's not the best idea probably to tape large pieces of paper to your wall, but that's what I did. So to answer that question, that's what I did. I literally went to Amazon. I typed in Savage Paper, seamless. I found a color I liked. I picked that, and they shipped it to me. And the roll is huge. Like I picked a 9 to, is it 9 foot or 12 foot? I'm pretty sure I had to cut along the paper just so it would fit along the wall, because the wall was actually wider than the roll of paper. So, you know, get the width of paper that you need for whatever it is that you're shooting, if you want to use paper. I also tried, before I tried taping it directly to the wall, I put together this, I'm not really proud of this, but anyway, I took some broomsticks and things like some handles, and I taped them together, and then I taped the paper around that so that it would be like this bar that would go up top and kind of hold it, and then I tried to brace that. Anyway, like I said, that didn't really work very well. It worked better to tape it. Probably now what I would do, rather than using tape, is use the 3M command strips. That's actually what I'm using for this background. So to answer what I'm using in this background, it is, I actually took foam. I wonder if I can, I'm going to pull one down. I'm going to pull this one down. All right. So here, what I did, so here you can see I have this project board, and all I did was I put the foam, I used spray adhesive, and with the spray adhesive, I put these different foam panels on, so you can see, maybe you can't see, there we go. Yeah, maybe you can't see that super well, but the foam panels, I used spray adhesive and then pushed the foam on, and then to put them on the wall, I used these 3M command strips. So I have this one here and then one on the other corner, and then I just use that to hold it up and help eliminate some of the noise in the background. I'll just set that down there to get it out of the way. So that's another one I used. And before that, I used, and before the paper, I just actually painted a wall. So I got permission from my wife to paint a wall specifically for video creation. And so I just chose a flat white wall. This was years ago, and you know, I just had a nice flat background for just a plain background. Now you can see that I use some lights. So you can see whenever I stepped away that I have this light shining up. And what that does is provides a little bit of distance between me and the background. And then I have some lights. I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to turn these lights up so you can see. I have an app here on my phone. I'm going to bounce those back up to white. So here you can see lots of, you know, bright light, and maybe you like this better. That's fine. But I put in some Philips Hue bulbs, and anyway, I like, you know, you can pick the colors. So I like putting this color on top. So it puts a little bit of a purple hair light on there for me. But that's a little bit about the backgrounds. If you have more questions about the backgrounds, let me know. That was question number 2, I believe. Let me check. I think that was 2. And then question number 3. All right, Chris is asking about placeholders and templates. Okay, so let me jump back over to my Camtasia, and I'm going to first save this because what I have here is good. And I'm going to create a new, let's just jump over to the full screen here. I'm going to create a new project from a template and show you what I've done. So I'm going to say new project from template, and I created this one. So I'm just going to click this. Actually, I'll double click it to open it. And I will explain what I've done here. And let's zoom to fit. Okay, let me jump back over. So what I did for this particular template, so the question was about when do I use templates and when do I use placeholders? And the short answer is placeholders are for specific assets or media that you'll use inside a template, which can be all of these assets that you're bringing together. And so when, I think it was Chris who asked the question, when Chris asked the question, he's like, when would I use this? I said, well, if you're creating a lot of videos, you might want to do this. If you're doing a video series, if you're doing like a YouTube series or a course or something like that, that would be when you would use templates. You could use templates. What I did specifically for this template was, you saw that it said YouTube. And what I did was I said, well, I know I have this camera setting. Oh, you don't know that yet because I'm not showing you. Let me go back. There we go. So down here in the bottom, it'll be easier if I zoom in. You can see I have this camera and this audio, and then I also have this, which shows the name and website, right? So that goes and does a little kind of fading thing around there. So that's all this is, a very simple, yeah, I mean, just, yeah, a very simple template. The reason I built this was I was creating YouTube videos, and you can see on the YouTube channel that I send these out like every couple of days, every, maybe 3 or 4 days. I wanted to have something consistent because I was creating a lot of videos for Camtasia 2020. And I was like, man, if I have the same settings, the camera is set up the same way, the audio is set up the same way, how can I just make this faster? What I did, I'll jump back over, is I said, all right, here, I'm going to set up the camera and get everything the way I want, get the audio exactly what I want. And then what I did was I right-clicked to make these placeholders. So let me show you. I'm going to jump over to my video files, and I want, here we go. So this is a video file, or a video, these are files for a video that will be coming up on YouTube. It's not here yet. I'm going to just drag these over to my media bin. And you can see that I have a screen recording, I have a camera video, and I have the audio. So I'm not going to worry about the screen recording right now. What I want to show you is I'm going to bring the camera video in, and I'm just going to lay it down here so you can see me walking over. So here's the camera video by itself without any changes. And you can see, look, there's a little bit of the room that I'd want to cut off. So what I would typically do is I would make this larger so that you can't see that, right? I would crop that out basically and zoom in. But instead of doing that for every single video, if I just take this and drag this down to this camera placeholder and let go, and I'll say ripple replace, now it's perfect. It has me exactly in the middle of the screen, or almost exactly in the middle of the screen, and it's zoomed in to the zoom into the level I want, which happens to be in this case, that says 85. Okay. So the recording itself, if I right-click the recording and look at its properties, where is properties? Details. Okay, I'm looking for P for properties or I for info. It's details. And I look at the details on this file. I can see that I recorded this at higher dimensions. So I recorded it at 2560 by 1400. Okay, and the reason I did that, maybe it's obvious, is because I wanted to crop out part of the sides. So I did this for all these videos. So now when I drag that video in, it has all those settings, it's ready to go. I don't have to worry about every time I go to create a video, zooming to the right size or cropping or any of that. It's already done for me. You saw me just drag that file into that placeholder. Okay, let's look at the second part of this. And that is down here on the audio. So let me see if I zoom. Yeah, you can't, that's okay. You can't really see what's happening there. All right, I'm not going to zoom in. I'm going to grab this audio file and drag this down to the audio section. I have to wait a second till it glows green. I'll do another ripple replace, and I'll trim all this stuff here at the end. I'll just do an S to split it and delete. And now I have all the audio settings that I want. And you can see that I used specific audio compression. It's custom with the ratio, threshold, and gain. Now, I honestly don't remember what each of those is. Well, I have a pretty good idea of what each of those is, but I just found the right settings for this video, and I said, this is what I want to use. And if I'm recording the same way every time, I can just reproduce this. Again, if I didn't have this, when I go to create the video, I drag the audio down. Then I drag over the tool that I need. Whoops, I guess it would be from this side. Drag the tool in that I need, and then I would have to set up, then I'd have to choose each one of these options. So if I look here, I think this will work. Yep. So if I look here at these options, I would have to find the right options for every time I wanted to apply this audio. Now, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to bring the audio in, and so here it is at the bottom. The other thing I did was this particular video has the gain turned all the way down, so I can just restore that up to 100, and the reason I might do that would be to align this properly. So I would go back, I would zoom in, find exactly, that's a funny face. Okay, yeah, that looks like I pretty well aligned that. I mean, it could be here or here. Either one of those would be fine. Yeah, I think I would just leave it there, zoom back out to the whole project, and then I would just drop this all the way back down to 0. Oh, wrong one. Control Z, grab the audio portion from the video, drag that down. And my guess is, I would start my video, looks like maybe right around here. Yeah. So I would just take this, do something like this, drag this to the left, and then I start off, I welcome people, I ask a question, I say whatever I'm saying, and then I bring up, this information here, then it goes away, and I continue to talk. And I would, trim the rest of this. It looks like a really short video. That might have been a take that I didn't want to keep. I don't know. But that's how I would use this. Now, another thing I would do whenever I'm setting this up. So if I said this is set up exactly how I want, I would right click this and I would say, I want to convert this video to a placeholder. So you might have been wondering, how did you make these placeholders to begin with? So I set up the video exactly the way I wanted, and then I went back and kind of reversed it and said, all right, now that I have everything laid out perfectly, just right click each item and convert to placeholder. Now, when I go there, you can see that I would right click, let me zoom down here, and choose convert to placeholder for the video. And I would right click and convert to placeholder the audio. And now those two are ready to go. This, I would not convert this to a placeholder. In fact, I'm not even sure. I guess I can. Okay, I can convert that to a placeholder. Control Z. I don't know why you would do that. That's not a placeholder. I'm not going to change that. I always want that to come in at exactly 3 seconds if I can. So I left that there. Now, with this looking the way it is, the last thing I would do is I would right click here and I would remove any of the media that I'm not using, which should be everything because this is just going to be a template. And then I would say File, Save Project. Oh, and you can't see that. Sorry. Let's go back up. And we would go to File, Save Project as Template. And then I would give it the template name. So I think I called that last one YouTube. So I'll call this YouTube 2. And I'll click OK. And it says, OK, you saved a template. Great. Now if I want to do a new file from template, I have YouTube, which is the first one, and YouTube 2. And I don't actually need YouTube 2. And I can go in and just delete that template if I want. You want to delete that? Yep. Because the original YouTube is good enough for me. So those are the things that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to jump over and see if you posted any questions. Can I use the template as a placeholder? Can I use the template? Okay, so Nathan, nope. Sorry, I misread your name. The question is, can I use a template as a placeholder? So you can see that what I did was I actually started this video with a template. And with that, I was able to basically create, let me see. I used a template. I brought in the things I wanted. I made some edits. And then I right-clicked the elements in there and used those as a placeholder. So I hope that answers your question. So can you use a template as a placeholder? They're really two different things. We use placeholders as elements inside templates. And so you can start with a template just like I did and go through and arrange things exactly how you want. And now you have a second version of that template. So you've right-clicked each of those elements and you've said, hey, I want to take this. This will be a placeholder. This will be a placeholder, and resave this as a new template. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, let me know. And if others have questions, please let me know. Please enter your questions here live as I'm here live. If you're watching this on a replay, you can just leave a comment in the description or in the comments, and I'll check that out. But while you're entering any last minute questions, I want to remind everyone, I think this is going to work. There we go. The question for today is, are you using templates, placeholders, themes? How are you doing that? Are you using anything inside Camtasia that lets you produce things a little bit faster in Camtasia? So let me know that in the comments as well. I'd be happy to check that out. And let me just jump back over to the questions. Thank you so much. Keep going and growing. Awesome. Thank you. I am glad that you showed up live. You are awesome. I appreciate everybody who is here and checking things out. I appreciate all of you very much. If you have other questions, let me know in the comments. You can shoot me an email if you have my email. Usually YouTube comments is the best way to get a hold of me. So again, thank you so much for showing up. I'll be here again next week. If you have more questions, if you let me know ahead of time, I can prep for them. But if not, I'll be happy to answer those live as well. So one last time, appreciate you being here. I'm Ron Hogue from Camtasia Mastery. Not sure why that went, why we lost the video. That's okay. I'm going to head out. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you later. Goodbye.